Hey, brothers and sisters, thank you for giving me the opportunity to teach you something new, hopefully, about this wonderful expression, this incredible moment on the cross. This to me is a very exciting opportunity because I see this the same way as you would probably see someone you're a fan of, say an artist, a singer, or anyone, a sports figure, and you have, say, a favorite song, a favorite moment in history, and you find out there's a documentary that's going to show you how that moment came about, how that song came about, and you get to see all the detail and the hard work that went into it to make it great. So this is what I hope this is going to do for you, is take you behind the scenes and really understand the full weight of this moment. And today, brothers and sisters, let's begin on this incredible journey where we talk about these amazing few words that go like this: my God, why have you forsaken me? That is a line that is incredibly misunderstood in the Bible. And I hope that today, after this little exploration, you feel the full weight of what that line truly means, so that it can do what it's supposed to do in your life, in your heart, and in your mind. Jesus cries out, my God, why have you forsaken me? That moment is recorded in Matthew and in Mark and even in Psalms. Psalms is very unique. We'll bring that up later. But to understand that moment, I first want you to understand something about the human condition that we all are aware of. But hopefully after this, you'll kind of be like, oh yeah, that's right. That makes sense. And that human condition is expressed by this following statement: ignorance can feel like peace. Some of us might better know this as ignorance is bliss. And what that truly means is not knowing something makes it a little easier to not feel the full impact of something. The less information you have about something, a particular situation, the less likely it will affect you. The less likely it will have the power to move you, to change you, to trigger something in you, to take maybe action or accountability. Ignorance can feel like peace. But let's talk about someone that didn't have that luxury of ignorance feeling like peace. So this is where we hone in on Jesus. Because in that moment on the cross where Jesus says, my God, why have you forsaken me? There's something that he is absorbing on our behalf. There is something that he is aware of that we, at different points in our life, might become aware of. And I hope you become aware of. But nonetheless, that moment in the cross, he absorbs this moment so that me and you wouldn't have to be stuck there. Because what you need to remember, Jesus never once had a moment where he wasn't in full communion with the Father. Never once had a moment where he wasn't in full understanding and harmony with the Father, due to the nature of the Trinity, which he is a part of. He never had a moment where he didn't know how good, how loving, how peaceful, how joyful a relationship with the Father was. In Isaiah, we learn that it's because of our sin that we are separated from Christ. Our sin is what separates us from that thing Jesus experiences with the Father always. Communion, perfect harmony. Perfect harmony with love, perfect harmony with goodness, perfect harmony with peace, with justice, with mercy. Jesus experienced all of that. There never is a moment where he doesn't. And yet we do, because of our sinful nature. We are taught that it is this very thing, sin, that breaks that communion and that bond. It goes all the way back to the garden with Adam and Eve. The relationship was torn. A trust was broken, and it has been separated, and there has yet to be a way to reconcile it, to bring it back together and mend those pieces, so that what Adam and Eve did, and which is a consequence for all of us in our sinful nature, can be resolved, and we can go back to experiencing what Jesus has always known: the goodness of God, the love of God, the perfect harmony, peace, and joy of knowing a God so good. See, but most people don't feel the weight of separation, and that happens to be our problem. At different parts of our journey, as we're trying to understand the Bible and the revelation of God through Jesus, we begin to get more knowledge about what exactly he did on our behalf. And the closer you get to Jesus, the more that separation starts to become real and heavy. But a lot of us, sadly, even some of us here today, because we don't have the same understanding that Jesus has to the Father, yet that separation might not do much for us. It might not move us to be compelled to change. It might not move us to surrender our ego and our pride that says, I can figure this out on my own. Or maybe it does, but you just don't know where to take it. Hopefully here you'll get an understanding of just how this moment on the cross absorbs something for us on our behalf that we should be very grateful for. See, Jesus knew the Father perfectly. From eternity, the Father and Son existed in perfect unity. And on the cross, something very unique happened. At the cross, this extraordinary moment took place where human sin was embodied into one individual. All the sins of you, your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, your grandma, your grandpa, your future kids, all of it was embodied into one person. And that person was Jesus, who by his own will decided to take on the task of becoming that which he never partook on, or that which he never did himself. Sin. He was perfect. He never himself took part in sin, but yet he chose to take it all on and become that very thing that separates us from God. So imagine how difficult of a task that must be, to live your life having a perfect understanding of your Father and the impact that relationship has on you. And then saying, I'm going to embody the very thing that at some point in this flesh that I'm living in the life of this flesh that I've chosen to take on for our sake, at some point, because sin separates from God, and I'm going to accept to become sin, at some point I'm going to fully have to embody the full nature of sin, and therefore, if you're tracking, therefore, I'm going to have to experience what? Separation. From who? The Father. Something he's never done before. Something he's never had to experience before. And yet today I want you to feel the full weight of that. Understand the full weight of that moment. Think now. What in our human experience can possibly give us some context of what it must be like to feel a love so great, a joy so incredible, a light so pure, that once we experience it, we can't imagine life without it. The only event, the only human experience I can think of, I can bring to your mind that can get close to that. Understand, it's not even a fraction of the magnitude of how good God is. But a moment I can explain, an example would be that of a father and a mother becoming parents for the first time, the second time, third time, it doesn't matter how many times, but the act of bringing children into the world. Any parent can tell you that once you experience that love, it doesn't matter how much you try to rationalize it if you're not a parent yet, it is impossible for you to try to understand it until you experience it. I tried once when my parents would tell me what it's like, because I'd hear examples like, you're never going to know until you become a parent. And I, being the way I am, I wanted to understand that, and they're right. Didn't make sense. When I became a father, it didn't make sense. This love that grew out of me, that embodied my whole universe for this individual. right? And a little bit can be said for the child, the daughter who has a great mother, a great father, that imagine what it must be like for them to have this union, this relationship with their father, their mother, that gives them safety, that gives them joy, that gives us a sense of love, and then having that taken away. A mother and father lose a child, and they'll tell you they never recover. They can continue life, but a part of them has broken that never fully repairs. So that moment, that weight, that is the definition I want you to think of when you hear the word abandonment, when I bring up the word separation, because that is exactly what Jesus chose to experience for us in that moment when he cried out, God, oh God, why have you forsaken me? This moment was so impactful because he had the knowledge. He had the information. He knew the goodness of God at its fullest. He knew the love of God at its fullest. He knew the joy of God at its fullest. He experienced the light at its fullest peak potential. So he knew that at some point, when he embodied sin on our behalf, he would have to feel the consequence of sin, the separation, the abandonment. And he knew it so much so that days before he was arrested in the garden, he dropped to his knees and cried out, is there another way? Tell me, please, is there another way for me to accomplish this? Where my body, I won't have to allow my body to feel this incredible brokenness that's about to happen, that they're fully unaware I'm about to do. And that many of us to this moment don't understand the full weight of that. In the garden, Jesus tried to see if the Father had another way, and then quickly dismissed his own flesh because he knew this was a cry from the flesh, and said, let your will be done, not mine. And took on the task of heading to the cross. And there he was on the cross. And some of us might think, well, that sounds like a very painful moment. But for some of us, we might think, I think the most painful thing Jesus must have experienced as he was here in the flesh, trying to show us what it means to be people that live in a fleshly body and be righteous, seeking after God. The worst thing he must have experienced must have been the betrayal of the very people he was trying to save, right? How many times have we seen stories where the people we think are for you end up betraying you? The very Jewish people that were supposed to recognize him, right, were the ones that were seeing him carry this cross through the city and didn't recognize him. Oh, no, you might be saying, no, the moment of the most anguish, the most insult, the most betrayal must have been when they chose Barabbas, or that criminal, over him, right, where the Roman emperor said, who do you want? Do you want me to just free this man who, according to me, hasn't really done anything wrong, or this criminal that you guys know is a criminal? And they chose the criminal. Man, that's a wound to the heart, right? Wait, some of you might think, no, actually, David, it must be that moment where his own disciple that he walked with, that he fed, that he taught, that he took care of, that he was preparing to receive this ultimate gift of salvation that we now know because we've come after, he was going to eventually give them. That guy, when he betrayed him, David, must have been what encapsulates the worst of the worst experience that a man can feel in the flesh, betrayal by those closest to you, right? No, it's not. The worst thing, the heaviest thing that Jesus ever experienced. And this is why I wanted you to bring that example of a father and a child and a father, a child and a mother and their child, and the absolute new love and understanding of love that grows from that experience and having that torn apart. And keep in your mind the consequence of that, of how it affects you as a human being to know something that pure and beautiful and then have it taken away. Keep that in mind, because that is exactly what's about to happen in this moment. And I hope you understand it clearly for what it is. In that moment, the most painful thing, the moment that brought Jesus to his knees in the garden days before, took place. Its fruition became true in the following lines. My God, why have you forsaken me? Abandonment hits Christ, and he feels the consequence of sin. For the first time, he allows himself to feel everything the body feels and the mind feels, the mind of someone who knows the goodness of God, the mind of someone who understands the love of God, the mind who can put into words, into emotions, the pureness of God, greater than that of the love of a father for their child or a child for their parents, greater than that. In that moment, that understanding was allowed to be felt by Jesus in its full capacity, and then, because of the nature of sin, taken away. Fully feel the weight of that moment when he says, why have you abandoned me? And what I need you to understand, that if he didn't do that, we would stay in that abandonment. We would forever live in that abandonment category. That the moment would come in our lives that we might at some point understand the goodness of God ourselves, the beauty of his joy, greater, more peaceful, more encompassing than the love we have for our children and our children have for us, a greater love than that. That a moment in our journey will come where we realize it, and imagine you saying, oh my goodness, how did I live so long and avoid this? How did I go on with life trying to figure it out on my own when I had this at my disposal that's so incredible, so pure? My goodness, how did I do it? How did I do it? I now see, I now understand, I now feel the necessity to surrender. I now feel the necessity to say, I'll let you take part of me and transform me. Imagine you coming to that point, and then they say, it's nice that you understand, but I'm sorry. You can't. You can't utilize this. You can't have communion with this. Your sin has not been resolved. So the separation continues, and you must live with that understanding and the full weight of what you now don't have access to. Can you imagine that? It would break you the same way it breaks a parent who loses a child who loses a parent. It would forever change you in a way that is not beneficial in flourishing, because no parent, no child that has experienced something like this will ever admit or will ever tell you, or they can tell you, that brokenness does not go away. And thanks to Christ on that cross, we don't have to experience that. He absorbed it for us. That is the full weight of knowing. We started off with ignorance, can feel peaceful. Ignorance is bliss, but Jesus didn't have that luxury of not knowing how good his Father is, how pure and loving. But some of us do have that luxury, and it's that luxury I'm hoping we can shut down today, so that you can finally reach a point where you start to see what Jesus did for you, but not just see it, not just know it, but feel the full weight of it like he did. And then feel the full joy of knowing that because of him on that cross, taking that on for us, you don't get stuck in that abandonment zone. But that very phrase, my God, why have you forsaken me, becomes the door that starts to creep open for salvation to make its way to you. Now, brothers, sisters, I brought up in the beginning that this was also found in Psalms 22. So if you read Psalms 22, you will find that Jesus is actually quoting Psalms 22, which was prophesied many, many years before he came. But something unique about him doing this is that in those times, people would memorize verses. So the Jews of the time, the teachers of the time, would memorize verses. And if you wanted to bring a verse to someone's mind, all you had to do was bring up the first few lines. It would be like if I started to sing, alabare, 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 and I stopped. You'd finish it off because you know it. It would be like that. So by him saying this, it was triggering in the minds of all the people around him that knew the scripture, that he was quoting something about himself. And that Bible verse is very unique because it not only says that this would happen to him, but it also says what comes next. And what comes next in that Bible verse, and I want to give you the challenge of you reading it, is the hope that we all still have because of what Jesus did on that cross. You know, the Son stepped into abandonment for us. It didn't leave us there. And that verse explains that clearly. Because after that moment, the way for salvation began to open up. So I pray and I hope this gives you a little bit of context. This exploration helps you fully feel the weight of that moment, but know that you're not meant to stay there. That we're encouraging you this whole month to take that leap, bring yourself to the cross, your ego, your pride, and accept the gift of salvation, of peace and joy and love that Jesus offers. My brothers and sisters, I hope to hear that today you step to the altar to renew your faith, to accept Jesus maybe for the first time, or to just come forth and give gratitude that he continues to transform you into the person you thought might have never experienced love, might have never been worthy of peace, never been worthy of finding real joy. Brothers and sisters, God bless you. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the service. Thank you for your time.
Separación.